What's going on, guys? Pixelated here, back at it again with another video. If you've been following the sneaker game, you already know, or you might not know, that one of the most limited and popular sneakers, the extremely limited Yeezy Zebra V2, is re-releasing. Now you might be wondering, Pix, the Zebra's re-releasing, why do you got these other Yeezys over here? Chill the f out, we'll get into that in a bit. The sneaker first released in super limited quantities on February 25th, I believe. It was a very exclusive release. If you thought you could walk up to your local sneaker store or boutique that typically holds raffles for them, you were out of luck. No stores had any pairs. You could only purchase them through Adidas online sites in a handful of regions, US, Canada, and Europe being some of them. You could sign up for raffles at Adidas flagship stores. The only place you had a chance of getting them other than Adidas stores and the website was yeezysupply.com, which isn't much easier than getting it through Adidas' website. It seems that people that always cop from other sites are the only ones that end up comping. Either bot game is heavy or internet game is lit. I'm just kidding. I've successfully copped manually before, so I know it's possible. Then we have the few that end up getting lucky. Either way, if you've been a regular viewer of my videos, you know I missed out on the last drop and I wasn't too happy about it. That's not to say I'm salty. Congrats to everyone who copped them. These are probably my favorite V2s out by far though. Right next to the Belugas. They might edge out the Belugas for first spot. Actually, they definitely upstage the Belugas. It's just a more versatile color, and the whale sperm colored midsole is just clean. Not that I enjoy whale sperm in any form, and real whale sperm probably isn't clean, just FYI for those that are curious, although my concern would typically start at the point of curiosity. So if you're curious, I would suggest getting checked out or something, but that's beside the point. This go around, the Zebra V2 is releasing in pretty much every store and boutique. For example, Foot Locker, Champs, Livestock, and others here in Canada. They are also re-releasing at the previous mentioned Adidas stores and online sites as well as yeezysupply.com. This is huge considering the shoe was so limited previously to the point that resale was over $1,000 US. I've never seen people willingly keep a price of a sneaker so exorbitantly high right after release. Typically price spikes when supply decreases, but what do I know about economics? Of course, there are people who went out and pretty much signed up for as many raffles as they physically could on the day of. Foot Lockers and Champs here in Canada only had a one-day raffle, so pretty much everyone was running around the cities all Monday. I'm not that ambitious though. I literally went to the closest Foot Locker to me to sign up, and I went to one of the Livestock locations, which isn't in downtown Toronto. It isn't necessarily close to me either, but it's closer than any other boutiques, and it's outside the heart of Toronto, so it's not as much of a pain to get to. Now, I haven't looked at the specific stock numbers, but from what I'm hearing, there is a decent amount of stock to go around. I believe either the cream or bread V2s were the highest stock Yeezys, and apparently this release will be mirroring the stock of those colorways as well. In other words, the Zebra V2 could very well be the most attainable Yeezy thus far. That's actually ridiculous if you think about it. All those people that bought and cashed out early, and all those people that were willing and gladly paid the inflated resale price tag for them, like it was an honor. The question here is, do they feel duped or do they accept the L and move on with their lives? Personally, I feel like the people who can comfortably pay for resale for sneakers to that extent have enough money that it doesn't affect their bottom line. My assumption is that if you're willing to pay that much just for sneakers, that you've got your basic needs covered and then some. For the most part at least. There will always be that one exception who could probably use that money for better things but decided sneakers are life and went ahead and spent the rack on a pair of Yeezys. What? Why are you looking at me? Kidding, there's no one here. I'm a loner. I know. But the real question then stands, and this is probably the one that is asked the most, is Resell dead or is it dying? With such a large amount of stock dropping for these, is it even possible for there to still be resale on these? Why would people continue to pay large sums for sneakers if there is so much stock? It doesn't seem logical. We can see examples of this in recent restocks. We saw this when Adidas restocked the 350 V1 Pirate Black. Resale price went down. It didn't die, but it went down. And more recently, we saw this with the Adidas Yeezy Power Phase. That sneaker initially released only on yeezysupply.com and the resale was ridiculous. With the restock, the sneaker now isn't moving at all. I've never seen a sneaker price dip so fast. It went from a $1,000 shoe to barely even selling at retail. This is somewhat understandable because there was nothing special about the shoe in the first place. Don't get me wrong, it's a nice shoe, but it wasn't a new design and it didn't have Adidas Boost technology, which has been essential in 98% of the Adidas sneakers that resell for considerably more than retail price. And this is where the Yeezy Boost differs. The truth is, even with the large amount of stock, people fail to see that the demand and consumer base for these sneakers has only been growing since the first Adidas Yeezy release. Looking back at it, if you were one of those people who tried for the first Adidas Yeezy release and are still here, you know for goddamn sure there weren't nearly this many people trying for Yeezys during those drops. I've seen people who didn't know a Nike sneaker from an Adidas sneaker a couple years ago become huge sneakerheads that follow every drop now. The influx is huge, and not to knock anybody, but what that means is even though the supply is larger than ever, the demand has grown to the point that it still far outweighs the supply. This is something Adidas is acutely aware of, and whether they choose to satisfy that demand is solely up to them. I feel like the Power Phase might have been an exception, but maybe they're not because they actually did sell out. If you really think about it, Adidas made their money on them, regardless of whether they're reselling in the market or not. Keep in mind the Bread and Cream V2 still resell for a considerable amount above retail, so a coveted colorway like the Zebra colorway will most likely follow suit. The caveat here is that it won't sell for nearly the same price as it did the first release, so does that still mean it's reselling, or can we comfortably conclude that resell is dead? Well, the way I see it, resell is still very much alive for these. What it was before was that it was inflated. With new stock, it'll be more reasonable. There's a saying that goes something like the market will always be unreasonable before it becomes reasonable, or something like that. I can't remember the actual thing, but that's exactly what's happening here. The Yeezys I have in front of me will still hold their value. They've only been released once, both in reasonable quantities. There was no severe shortage like the initial Zebra V2 release. The Zebra was reselling for way more than both of these, but will now be reselling for below the price of these most likely. So you can see how things change in an instant and why it's important for Adidas and any hype sneaker company to closely monitor their stock numbers. With that being said, no, resell isn't dying, at least not completely. It's just becoming more reasonable. I mean, it's dead on the power phases, but let's be honest, if you didn't see that coming, you silly. I, for one, am glad I didn't cave and pay resell for a pair of Zebra Yeezys, and some of my friends know I was really friggin' close. At the end of it all, I'm hoping to finally cop a personal pair. If I don't, I'm not going to be upset about it. I mean, it'll suck, but I think I'll survive. With that being said, if you took anything from the video, please hit that like button. I really want to know what you guys think about the Zebra restock. Will it make the Zebras more affordable? Will it make them less coveted? Are you going to try to get a pair? And please hit that sub button for more juicy content. Catch you later. Pixelated out.